I woke up to the feeling of his lips on my neck. Not a dream, not some blurry, half-drunk memory. I was stone cold sober, and I could feel the stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his breath, and the pressure of his hand sliding under my shirt. It was Zach, my best friend. My straight has a history with cheerleaders, frat boy energy best friend. And the craziest part, we hadn't even gone to sleep in the same bed. So yeah, you're probably wondering how the hell that happened. Because I was too. Let's rewind. This started 2 weeks before graduation, during what we all called Senior House Week. It was this weird little tradition at our college, right after finals, before everyone officially moved out and went their separate ways. A bunch of seniors would rent a house off campus for one last hurrah. No RA rules, no curfews, just beer pong, late night fast food, and memories we'd either never forget or pretend never happened. There were 6 of us: me, Zach, Jordan, Trey, Colin, and David. All guys, all friends, all a little too ready to pretend adulthood wasn't waiting just a block away. The house we rented looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. Faded siding, sagging porch, a creaky screen door, but it was cheap and had a basement with a pool table, so we didn't complain. Everyone picked rooms on the first night, and by some unspoken agreement, Zach took the one next to mine. We weren't roommates exactly, but we might as well have been. Thin-ass walls, noisy floors. I could hear the way he sighed when he flopped onto his mattress, the way he cleared his throat when he stayed up late scrolling TikTok. And he could probably hear every time I whispered his name into my pillow, like some pathetic, crush-struck kid. Not that I ever said anything. I never even came close. Zach and I had been tight since sophomore year. We met in a stats class that neither of us had any business being in. I was already drowning in the first week, and he showed up to office hours looking equally panicked. We paired up for a group project, and something about the way he made a joke out of every graph, every boring lecture, it just clicked. Zach was magnetic. That kind of guy who could wear a hoodie and sweatpants and still look like he belonged on a billboard. Loud, flirty, the life of every party, always surrounded by girls. He wasn't subtle about it either. I'd heard more than enough stories about his hookups in frat bathrooms and drunk confessions in Ubers. I never judged. I laughed along, played the part of the supportive friend. But deep down, it stung. Because I knew I'd never be one of those stories. He wasn't into guys. He wasn't into me. At least, that's what I thought. The first few days in the house were chaotic in the best way. Day drinking turned into impromptu volleyball tournaments in the backyard. Taco Bell wrappers littered the living room. Someone found an old speaker in the basement, and suddenly we had 2 a.m. dance parties, shirtless and half sober, yelling lyrics to songs we barely knew. Zach was always around me. Always close. Always brushing his hand against mine when he passed the chips, leaning just a little too far over the couch, falling asleep with his legs resting against mine like it was no big deal. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that I was reading into things because I wanted something to be there. But then there were these moments, quiet, in between the chaos, where I caught him looking at me. Not in that bro kind of way, but like he was seeing something for the first time, and it made my stomach twist. Then came the night everything changed. We'd played beer pong for hours. Zach and I were on a team, and we lost. Horribly. He blamed me, said I had the weakest wrist in the group, and then winked like that wasn't a loaded comment. I shoved him. He shoved back. We laughed, we wrestled, and then we ended up collapsed on the couch, out of breath and still buzzing. Eventually, everyone started drifting off to bed, one by one. I got up to head to my room, and Zach said he'd crash in the hammock on the back porch. I nodded. We fist bumped. It felt normal, like nothing was out of place. Except it was. Because at some point in the middle of the night, I felt it. The shift of the mattress, the warmth of a body pressing against mine. And then, the soft brush of lips at the base of my neck. That was when I realized Zach wasn't asleep. And this wasn't a dream. This was something else. Something real. Something dangerous. Something I didn't think I could ever come back from. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I lay there, frozen, heart thudding so loud I was sure he could hear it. His lips hovered near my skin for a second longer, just long enough to make me wonder if I imagined it, if the warmth there was just leftover heat from a dream. But then his hand slid a little higher under my shirt. That's when I knew I wasn't dreaming. I was wide awake, and Zach was fully conscious. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't sleepwalking. He was behind me, arm curled around my waist, hand spread over my stomach like it belonged there. I could feel him breathe against the back of my neck, slow, steady, but too steady, like he was faking sleep, just like I was now. I waited, unsure if I should say something, unsure if I even wanted to. His fingers moved again, the lightest touch, like he was testing something. They stopped just under my ribs and stayed there, resting, warm and grounding, and absolutely wrecking my sense of reality. I finally turned slightly, slowly, cautiously, just enough to glance back over my shoulder. Zach's eyes were open. He didn't flinch, didn't look embarrassed. He just met my gaze, calm, unbothered, like we were in the middle of a casual conversation. "Hey," he whispered, like this was normal. "Zach, what are you doing?" He shrugged slightly. "Couldn't sleep." My eyebrows furrowed. "So you thought, what, you'd sneak into my bed and spoon me?" He gave a small, almost sheepish smile. "Something like that." I shifted to face him, pulling back just enough to see his expression in the moonlight seeping through the curtains. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look like he was playing a prank. He just looked serious. His hand was still on me, now just above my hip. He hadn't moved it. "Is this a joke?" I asked, my voice low, cautious. He blinked. "No, it's not." Silence stretched between us. I tried to process what was happening, tried to make it fit into the version of Zach I thought I knew. The Zach who flirted with every girl at every party. The Zach who once told me he'd never even thought about being with a guy. And yet, here he was, close, quiet, soft. "I don't get it," I said, barely more than a whisper. "I thought you were straight." His jaw flexed, and for a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Hesitation, maybe. Regret. Or fear. "I don't know what I am," he admitted. "All I know is, I think about you. More than I should." I stared at him, trying to believe the words I was hearing. "Since when?" He laughed once under his breath, not in a mocking way, just soft, nervous. "I don't know. Maybe since that night we stayed up watching that dumb horror movie sophomore year. You kept grabbing my arm like I was gonna save you." "I hate jump scares," I said automatically, because I didn't know what else to say. "Yeah," he smiled. "But you didn't let go of me. Not once." My face heated, and I tried to play it off, but the moment already felt too raw for deflection. "So what, now you sneak into bed and kiss me while I'm sleeping?" "That wasn't the plan," he said. "I told myself I'd just lie here. Nothing more. I wanted to be close to you." I didn't know what to say. I had imagined this moment so many times, in so many ways. But in all those fantasies, it was never this quiet, never this vulnerable. "Are you gonna kiss me again?" I asked. Zach searched my face. "Do you want me to?" I didn't answer out loud. I just leaned forward. The moment our lips touched, it was like my brain short-circuited. Everything I thought I knew, about him, about us, just went silent. It wasn't fireworks or some Hollywood moment with music swelling in the background. It was softer than that. Realer. His lips were warm, hesitant, like he was testing a boundary he never thought he'd cross. And I let him. I kissed him back, slow, uncertain, matching his energy because neither of us knew what the hell we were doing, We stayed like that for a few seconds, just barely touching, just enough pressure to feel the intent behind it. Then he pulled back. His forehead rested against mine, and he let out a breath he'd clearly been holding. "Okay," he whispered, voice shaky. That wasn't nothing." I nodded slowly. "Yeah." Zach stared at me in the dark, and for once, he looked nothing like the guy everyone else saw. Not the confident party animal. Not the flirty, untouchable jock. Just a guy, scared and unsure but wanting something. Wanting me. "Are you freaking out?" I asked, because I didn't want to be the only one spinning. He gave a tight, dry laugh. "Yeah, a little." "I mean, do you regret it?" His face got serious. "No, not even a little." That hit harder than I expected. Zach moved closer again, slipping his arm around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we'd been doing this forever, like we were allowed to. We lay there in silence for a while, neither of us sleeping, just processing. "I've been thinking about this," he said finally, "for weeks, maybe longer." I turned toward him slightly, my hand resting against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat fast and strong beneath my fingers. "Why didn't you say anything?" He exhaled. "Because I didn't know what it meant. I've never liked a guy before, and I didn't want to mess things up between us." "You mean you didn't want to mess up your reputation?" I said before I could stop myself. He didn't argue, just went quiet. His grip on me didn't loosen, but I felt the tension creep in. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "That wasn't fair." "No," he whispered. "It's okay. You're right. I was scared." I wanted to say more, to make the weight between us go away, but instead, I just lay there with him, feeling the way his thumb moved slowly along my side, the way his breath slowed the longer we stayed like that. "I didn't plan this," he said again, softer now. "I know, but now that it's happened." "Yeah, I don't want it to be a one-time thing." I looked up at him. "You sure?" He nodded slowly. "I don't know what I am, or how this fits into the rest of my life, but I know I want you. That part's not confusing." I smiled without meaning to. "You're such a mess, dude." He grinned. "So are you." We didn't sleep much that night, not because of anything physical, not yet, but because we couldn't stop talking about us, about what this meant, about what would happen next. It was like the dam had broken, and everything we'd been holding back for years came flooding out. By the time the sun started creeping in through the blinds, Zach had his head on my shoulder, legs tangled with mine, our hands resting together between us like they'd always belonged there. No more pretending, no more guessing, just us. And that's when the knock came on my door. The knock wasn't loud, but it was enough to snap both of us out of the haze we were in. Zach sat up instantly, his hand disappearing from mine so fast you'd think it burned him. His whole body tense like he was ready to jump out the window if he had to. "Relax," I whispered, grabbing his wrist gently. "It's probably just Colin asking if we want coffee." The knock came again. Then a voice. Trey's, low and casual through the door. "Yo, you up? Breakfast run." I cleared my throat, hoping I didn't sound guilty. "Yeah, give me 5. There was a pause, then footsteps retreating down the hall. Zach let out a breath like he'd just defused a bomb. "Jesus," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "That was close." I nodded, my heartbeat still racing. Not because I was afraid of getting caught. We weren't doing anything wrong, but because I could see it written all over his face. He wasn't ready for anyone to know. We sat there in silence for a moment. The sunlight creeping in now made everything feel too real. No more safety in darkness. No more suspended reality. It was morning, and we were two guys who had just crossed a very real line. "I should go back to my room," Zach said quietly, not looking at me. I swallowed, the sting immediate. "Yeah, okay." He stood, hesitating by the door like he wanted to say something else, but all he did was glance over his shoulder and offer a tight smile. "Last night meant a lot." and then he was gone. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while after, staring at the door, trying to figure out if I felt more like something incredible had just started, or something fragile had already cracked. The rest of the day felt weird. Zach was normal. Too normal. Like a guy who'd spent the night talking about random movies, not one who had kissed me and confessed he wanted more. At breakfast, he laughed at the right times, passed the syrup like usual, even made fun of Trey for his croissant obsession. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. Not once. Colin asked if we were hungover, and I almost answered on each other. But I bit my tongue. I didn't want to screw this up. I didn't know what this even was yet. Later that afternoon, we ended up on a hike with the others. The trail wound through a patch of woods behind the cabin. Nothing crazy, just a chance to kill a few hours and shake off the food coma from breakfast. Zach walked ahead most of the way, joking with the guys, tossing pine cones into the brush, doing everything except acknowledge I was even there. And I let him. What else could I do? When we finally got back to the house, I went straight to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed, that same damn bed where everything changed, and stared at the floor. A soft knock pulled me out of it. Not rushed, not urgent, just quiet. I opened the door, and Zach was standing there, eyes finally locking with mine. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. He sat on the bed, rubbing his palms together nervously. "I was weird today," he said. "I know that." "Yeah," I replied honestly. He looked up at me, his expression raw. I didn't know how to act. I didn't want the guys to know. Not because I'm ashamed of you, I swear it's not that. I'm just scared. I sat next to him. "Me too," he nodded. "But I've been thinking about it all day. About you, about last night. And I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I don't want to pretend I don't feel this." My throat tightened. "So what now?" Zach reached for my hand. Held it, not just brushed it or fumbled with it, held it like he meant it. "Now," he said, "we figure it out, together, just you and me, one step at a time." And for the first time all day, he leaned in, this time not with hesitation, but certainty, and kissed me again. The second kiss wasn't like the first. There was no fear in it. No tiptoeing or tension. This time, Zach knew what he was doing, and so did I. His lips were firmer, more confident, like he'd been waiting the entire day to do this again. I melted into it. There wasn't a second of hesitation in me. Not anymore. We were past wondering. This was real. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads stayed pressed together. "I'm sorry if I scared you this morning," he said quietly. "You didn't scare me," I replied. "You confused the hell out of me." "But no, not scared." He smiled, just a little. "I meant it, you know. I don't want this to be a one-time thing." I nodded. "I don't either." That night, something shifted between us. Not in a dramatic, world-ending way, but in small, subtle moments. Zach didn't sneak into my bed. He walked in, closed the door, climbed in beside me like it was normal. We didn't touch at first, just lay side by side, staring at the ceiling, both of us unsure what to do next. "You think we're gonna regret this?" he asked softly. I thought about it. "No," I said finally, "but I think it's gonna be complicated." He let out a breathy laugh. "You're not wrong. There were a million reasons not to do this. Graduation was days away. We'd be moving to different cities. We'd spent years building a friendship that could easily fall apart under the weight of whatever this was becoming. But none of that mattered when he turned to face me again. He reached for me slowly, like I was something fragile. His hand slipped under my shirt again, but this time it wasn't tentative, it was deliberate. He traced the line of my ribs, then the small curve of my waist. I shivered under his touch, but didn't pull away. "I've never touched a guy like this before," he admitted. "You're doing fine." His smile widened, and he leaned in again. We kissed, slow, deep, and longer than before. His hand kept moving, his fingers learning me like I was something he'd always wanted but had only just realized was within reach. Eventually, we shifted under the blanket, legs tangled together. We didn't go further than that. Not that night. But that didn't matter. We were skin to skin, heart to heart, something unspoken settling between us. Trust. Curiosity. Something like love. But not yet. Not quite. Can we keep this between us? He asked as we lay there, his voice low against the shell of my ear. For now, I whispered. But not forever. He nodded against me. Not forever. Sleep came easier that night. I woke up with Zach's arm wrapped around me, his breath slow and steady on the back of my neck, and for the first time in years, I didn't wake up lonely. We were still in the in-between, still unsure what came next. But I knew this, whatever this was worth finding out. The next morning, reality came creeping back in. I woke up before Zach, sunlight cutting across the bed in thin golden lines. His arm was still around me, heavy and warm, his bare chest pressed against my back. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to break the spell. But someone knocked on the door again. "Yo," Colin called, muffled. "Zach, you in there?" Zach stirred behind me. His body tensed for a second. Then he groaned quietly and let his forehead drop against my shoulder. "Shit!" "I'll distract him," I whispered. "You sneak out." Zach nodded, kissed the back of my neck once, quick and light, and then slipped out of bed, pulling his hoodie over his head in one motion. He glanced back once before slipping into the hallway like a ghost. It was messy. It felt like sneaking around in high school. But we weren't kids. We were two grown men with the emotional maturity of maybe 1.5. And we were figuring it out. Over the next few days, we fell into a rhythm. Quiet moments when no one was watching. A brush of his hand on my leg under the table. Long looks that lasted a second too long. Late nights when he slipped into my room without knocking, and we lay in the dark, not always touching, but always close. And slowly, I saw him change. He started letting his guard down, asking more questions, being more present with me. He didn't have all the answers, and neither did I, but we were building something. Then the week ended. We all packed our stuff, shoved leftover beer into coolers, tossed bags into trunks. People hugged, high-fived, made half-serious promises to meet up again next summer. I stood in the driveway, watching everyone say goodbye. Zach loaded his duffel into the back of his car, then walked over to me. "I'll text you," he said quietly. "Sure." "I mean it," I nodded. "I believe you." He looked around once, just a quick glance to make sure no one was watching, then stepped closer. His voice dropped. "Come visit me, my place. No roommates. Just us. I'd like that." We didn't kiss. Not there. But the look he gave me said everything. He drove off first. I watched the back of his car disappear around the bend, and suddenly I felt hollow. That first week apart was hard. He texted every night. Dumb stuff, mostly. Memes. Complaints about his new job. Pictures of his dinner. But then his texts shifted. They got longer. Deeper. And then came the call. It was late. Past midnight. I answered on the first ring. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said. No jokes, no hesitation. "I can't stop either. Come stay with me." So I did. I packed a bag, booked a train, told myself not to expect anything. But when I knocked on his door, Zach pulled me in like he'd been waiting years, not weeks. He kissed me in the hallway, hands on my face like I was something he couldn't believe he'd finally gotten to touch again. That night, we didn't need to talk about labels or what we were to anyone else. We just needed to be in the same room. The bed was different. The city was different. But the way he looked at me wasn't. We were still figuring it out, still scared, still new. But this time, we were doing it together. And that was more than enough. I didn't expect it to last. I wanted it to. But part of me thought maybe it was just a summer thing. A moment we'd remember fondly but move on from. That maybe the distance, or time, or fear would kill it quietly. but it didn't. Zach and I survived it all. The awkward months, the questions from friends, the weird conversations with family, and the long nights when one of us felt too overwhelmed to be soft. We got through it, together. I ended up moving to his city. At first, it was just crashing at his place for weekends, then for a week. Then we stopped pretending it was temporary. We had a rhythm now. Sunday mornings were for coffee runs and slow kisses in the kitchen. Thursday nights were for couch naps that turned into tangled limbs and half-asleep confessions. But the real turning point came on a random Wednesday. He got home from work later than usual, dropped his bag by the door, and looked at me like he hadn't seen me in years. I was sitting on the floor in a hoodie, eating cereal straight from the box. Nothing romantic, nothing special. And yet, he crossed the room, knelt down in front of me, and took my face in his hands. "You're it for me," he said, just like that. I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." I stared at him, heart hammering like it had the first time he crawled into my bed back in that rented lake house. "Are you serious?" He nodded, eyes not leaving mine. I've never been more sure of anything. And then, without fanfare, without planning, he kissed me. Right there on the living room floor, in the middle of takeout containers and messy socks and real life, Zach kissed me like a promise. Not just "I want you," not just "I need you," but "I'm staying." That night, I lay in bed with his arm wrapped around me, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, and I realized something I hadn't dared believe before. This wasn't some phase. This wasn't an experiment. This was love. Messy, imperfect, ordinary, extraordinary love. And it was mine.